I lost $97,000 because of you. I bankrupt because of you.
Travis Kalanick is the latest CEO to have had to step down due to the forging of toxic work environments. It seems like all we're doing these days is pumping out shows about unethical business tycoons these days. And with these miniseries and movies, we begin to see a pattern of greed and insurmountable wealth become the only goal for people who begin to stop seeing their workers as people and rather a means to an end. The same can be said for Travis Kalanick, the CEO of Uber, who resigned after growing pressure from the public after he was exposed for ignoring reports of harm being done within his company. Despite resigning, he left the company with a net worth of $2.6 billion and continues to create companies. But has he learned anything from Uber? Today we're covering Travis Kalanick. Tomorrow though, you decide. Let us know in the comments down below who you think we should cover on the next few episodes of Where Are They Now. It would also be much appreciated if you could like this video, so long as you enjoyed it of course, just so we know to keep making more similar to this one. Let's get into it. Even from a young age, Travis was determined to make something of himself. As a teenager, he went door to door selling knives for a direct sales company. At 18, he started a test preparation company called New Way Academy with the father of one of his friends. After graduating from high school, Kalanick decided to go to UCLA for computer engineering and business economics, but he would eventually drop out to pursue the creation of a startup called Scour. Scour is a multimedia search engine, and Travis handled sales and marketing. And although he was there during the early stages of the company, he was not a founder. This didn't stop him from referring to himself as one though, much to the chagrin of the actual founders. The company would also only last 2 years, however, because the Motion Picture Association of America, the Recording Industry Association of America, and the National Music Publishers Association sued Scour for $250 billion, alleging copyright infringement. So Scour did the only thing they could do and filed for bankruptcy to protect itself from the lawsuit, and the company went under. Then a year later, Travis started his own company with a man named Michael Todd called Red Swoosh. It was also a peer-to-peer file-sharing company, with Kalanick openly calling it his revenge business against the lawsuit that killed Scour. That being said, Red Swoosh had an insanely rocky start. It was right after the dot-com bubble burst, so investors were hesitant to give them enough money to properly launch. Because of this, some employees went months without paychecks, and Red Swoosh ran with minimal month-to-month cash flow. In fact, the company was so poor that the decision was made to use money meant for taxes to pay for the day-to-day operations. This could be considered tax fraud, and although it never went to court, the experience caused so much tension between Michael Todd and Travis that Todd left the company. Travis then moved back in with his parents and went 3 years without a salary in an effort to keep Red Swoosh going. But just when he thought the company was dying, he met an investor who would take a chance and give Red Swoosh $1.8 million. Because of this, Travis was able to hire more programmers, and more investors warmed up to the idea of giving the company money. In 2007, 6 years after its creation, a competing company bought out Red Swoosh for $19 million, with Travis making $2 million off of the deal after taxes. Now, with a good chunk of change in his pocket, Travis moved to San Francisco, and in 2009, he co-founded Uber. He founded it with Garrett Camp, the creator of StumbleUpon. They were friends, and when Camp had expressed frustration with taxi services in San Francisco, he decided to develop the concept for a smartphone app that could hail luxury vehicles straight from the user's phone. He brought the idea to Travis, who agreed to act as an advisor for the company. Neither Camp nor Kalanick wanted to run the company directly, so they brought on Ryan Graves as the CEO at launch. He held the position for a bit before being replaced by Travis, who saw the potential and wanted more control of the company. When it came to investors, Kalanick was extremely wary due to his past experiences, but he brought on Google Ventures and poached investors from competitors like Lyft. By 2014, Travis had a suffering reputation due to his ruthless attitudes towards competitors, customers, employees, and Uber drivers. The corporate culture at Uber was insane, and that is understated. Employees were expected to work nights and weekends regularly without additional pay to reflect the work. Conference calls were often scheduled at all times of the night, sometimes even at 3 a.m. Travis also rewarded people like him who were ruthless, and often it meant rewarding infighting within his own company. Because of his position as CEO, he held tight control over all aspects of the company, including the board of directors, often bragging about picking directors who were yes men and allowed him to do whatever he wanted. It became pretty public knowledge just how toxic the corporate culture was. There was rampant bullying, misogyny, and aggression towards women in particular. Some women would report other employees who were making extremely aggressive, unwanted advances on them. When the files were reported, Travis ignored them. There were frequent company charges to strip clubs, and Travis reportedly called the company, quote, boober, because of all the female attention it garnered him. By 2017, the public had a general understanding of just how bad working for Uber was. Not only was corporate culture awful in Uber, but drivers had been advocating for tipping to be available for years, and Travis opposed it because it would interfere with his frictionless payment system. When compared to Lyft, which did allow for tipping, Uber began to seem as, quote, the unfeeling, win-at-all-costs player in ride-hailing. Then, in mid-2017, a report from an independent investigation into Travis's willful ignorance of women's complaints was presented to Uber's top management. The scathing report was literally hundreds of pages long and included dozens of recommendations, including Travis taking a leave of absence and reducing his level of control over Uber. 2 days after the report, Travis announced that he would take an indefinite leave of absence from the company, although he continued to work without the approval of the company's board. But the only people who actually held any shred of power over the CEO finally made their muscles shown: the investors. The people with the money, at the end of the day, have the final say, and when 5 major investors, including Benchmark Capital, staged a coup by demanding he resign or they would pull out, Travis finally relented. Only a few days later, in-app tipping was added. Despite stepping down as CEO, Kalanick remained on the board of directors and continued to try and hold his power by interfering with company operations and contacting employees to ask for internal company information and attempting to sway their voting of the new CEO. When executives found out about his smarmy ways, they all threatened to quit en masse, which led the rest of the board of directors to strip Kalanick of any access to company servers, meaning he was basically shut out from all company affairs. Then, once it seemed like Kalanick would finally be kicked out of the company for good this time, he did what any rat would do and ran. Before quitting himself, Travis sold off 90% of his Uber stock, which meant he made about $2.5 billion. Following the sale, he was ranked as number 238 of the richest Americans with a net worth of $2.6 billion. But despite now finally being ousted by Uber, Travis is far from finished. Soon after he left, he started a venture firm and a company that redevelops real estate in distressed neighborhoods, so basically a gentrifying company. He's now the CEO there and at a company called Cloud Kitchens, which rents out kitchen space to commercial businesses that deliver meal kits. With his billionaire status, he also bought a Soho penthouse for $36.5 million and a $43.3 million mansion in Los Angeles. He also dated a Victoria's Secret model, but they split in early 2021. So these days, he's basically still a CEO, just not for Uber. He'll continue to make more money, and just like we sadly so often see, the rich get richer. For his part in the Showtime series Super Pumped, Travis absolutely declined to participate in any of it. The show is based on a book with the same name by a New York Times reporter who worked closely with the Uber coup and paints a less than flattering view of Travis. As for what he thinks about Super Pumped, we may never know. He has very little social media presence that is in any way personal, and his Instagram account is private. He hasn't tweeted since 2019 either, so he's yet to offer up his thoughts, or if he's even tuning in, which, given how narcissistic and self-absorbed he seems, I would bet money I don't even have on him at least watching it. So how do you feel about the banished Uber CEO and the companies he's presiding over now? Let us know in the comments down below. While you're down there, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you can stay notified when we post our next video. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Where Are They Now? See you guys next time.